Yes, guys, welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. We are back with an international break special. As always, it's Wednesday lunchtime. It's me and Big Man back up. Big Man, how are you, mate?
I'm good, Gianni. How are you doing? It's been a while. It's been 2 weeks, which seems like an eternity when it comes to our calendar, right? Because we're streaming what two times a week. So for us, not having spoken over 2 weeks seems like a long time.
Yeah, it's not just the streaming between us a couple of times a week, it's all the tweets, the Instagrams, the content, which
Yeah,
really for us in the international break does the first week especially takes a little bit of a break. It's our breaks, it's our weeks off. I'm on holiday with the family at the moment. I book
yeah.
all my social holidays during the international breaks. Um, and
That's
and yeah, it's are we back in the mode yet? I feel as of today I'm getting back in the mode.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same for me. I mean, I was very delighted to have taken a week off. In fact, I did not post on my socials at all, like whether it was X or Instagram. I just took like a complete week off, FPL, and it was only today that I sort of logged into X, Instagram after what 10 days. So yeah, it was refreshing, but yeah, I mean, at the same time, I'm not exactly looking forward to getting back into FPL mode yet because this is a tough week for my team where the transfers aren't exactly obvious, and there are a few routes that I can take, and yeah, it seems like a very tricky week to navigate. But I hope I can sort of end up on the positive side of variance. Last week was great, so that's something I want to briefly touch upon. After a rough start of the season, I had a decent week in game week 3, so it was always sort of nice to sort of go into the international break on a bit of a high. But yeah, sort of have to decide whether or not to get Salah now, and that seems to be a very big decision.
I look forward to speaking about your team coming up. I'll give a nod to what I've done as well. And yeah, big decisions. We've got decisions to make. I was delighted, Big Man, for you that you had a really good game week 3 because, like me, you had a bit of a rough start to the season. I didn't have a brilliant game week 3 either, but I guess I'm still fairly happy. It's so early. Like, I put it into perspective and go, we are only 3 of 38 weeks in. Like, it's the same. Over Christmas when you have like 3 games in 8 days, it's like that's as equally as important as the month we've just had. So let's not get too high or too low. Is my message. I can see in the chat we have 3 new members that have just signed up. And in the international break, we've launched the Chasing Green Arrows members. So if you want to be a chaser and member, Chris Crimmins, thank you very much. Leo Rayners, thank you too. And Matthew Kroll, thank you so much, guys, for supporting the channel. Your perk as a member is pretty much anytime you have a question, we'll answer it. Like, we bring up loads of chat anyway, but if you're a member, we guarantee we'll bring up your chat. So Matthew's got a question straight away, we'll bring it up. Bailey to Matoma and Armstrong to João Pedro. What I would say, Matthew, is João Pedro and those 2 Brighton fixtures look amazing for game weeks 4 and 5. I've gone João Pedro in on a hit this week. I don't mind those moves at all. Chasing Matoma as well. Just wait for the press conference, just in case Hersler tells us anything about Matoma coming back late. João Pedro is currently on a flight from Paraguay, by the way. I've tracked that this morning. He could make Thursday training. What's your take there, big man? João Pedro and Brighton Love is 2 brilliant fixtures for their attack.
I think Armstrong to Pedro is a move that sort of picks itself. I'm not really sure that Armstrong even is going to start now at this point because after the previous game, Archer played really well. In fact, the manager sort of mentioned and name checked Archer as having a very good impact, and Armstrong was one of the guys who was actually taken off at halftime, which was surprising because at the start of the season, one of the main reasons for me sort of being a big advocate of Armstrong was his minutes. So it's sort of surprising to see that his minutes have sort of fallen off a cliff. So he has to go. I mean, that's a move that sort of picks itself. Pedro is a great buy. Bailey to Matoma for -4 is tricky. I assume it's a move he needs to fund this transfer because I don't think it's a move he must be making. But even then, I still sort of have a feeling that maybe getting Minte over Mitoma might be better because that extra 1 million might go a long way in sort of facilitating, let's say, for example, if he needs Salah or any other, premium asset in game week 5 or 6, that would really help. I do think Mitoma is slightly better than Minte, but I don't think it's enough to warrant like a 1 million price difference because when you look at their stats, they're kind of similar. In fact, Minte over his career is like actually killing Mitoma when it comes to non-pen XG non-pen XG and non-pen XA. So yeah, I think Minte might be even better. I don't think there's like a 1 million price difference between them.
Yeah, that 1 million might feel fine for your team now. but later down the line, you might need it. And I'm with you. I do think Matoma's the better pick because he's guaranteed to probably play 90. Guaranteed to probably. Minter is going to get a ton of early subs, but he'll still often play 75, 80. Guys, we are live at the moment. Binod says this pre-recorded. No. I'm live from Centre Parks. Big Man is live from Pakistan. Guys, if you want to hit those buttons, likes and subscribes are very, very welcome. How many are watching Big Man? I've not got YouTube up, so I can't see. I'm trying to keep my internet
I haven't either.
down.
I haven't either. But let me actually look it up. The producer sent me the link. So yeah, generally I don't tend to sort of log into YouTube because I tend to sort of get disturbed by the comments that people are making. So yeah, but I'll have a look right now. How many do we have live? We have close to 110 people who are live.
Nice, guys. Thank you for watching, as always. This is a regular slot for me and Big Man Backer. So, Big Man, in terms of international break news, the big ones that I've noted from the last couple of days are Ake went off stretchered last night. So if you've got Ake, very few have got Ake, but it might mean Guardiola's minutes are more secure. Odegaard looks like he's going to be missing for a minimum of 3 weeks. What does that do to the Arsenal attack? Does that mean we could see Havertz playing in the middle three instead of as the number 9 at times? Maybe it does. Personally, I still think for the North London derby, Havertz number 9. But does it weaken Arsenal? Yes, it does. And remember, Declan Rice is suspended for that North London derby. And then I guess the other big one was Konza. I don't know if we know much about Konza, Big Man. Is he one of your players?
He is, and he's actually very, very integral to my plans going forward. So that injury update will be very, very important for my particular team. He sort of seemed to brush off the injury, and he sort of continued playing, and then he got taken off eventually. And then sort of Carsley was asked in the post-match press conference, he said that he's fine. So I'm not sure what exactly does that mean. It could easily be that he's likely to be okay for the weekend, but it could also mean that he might be given the weekend off so that he's well prepared for Aston Villa's Champions League game on Tuesday night, because they have a very important game on Tuesday, right? So yeah, I'm hoping he sort of makes the weekend, but I think it will come down to what we hear from Unai Emery, and more importantly, what we sort of see in the training pictures from Aston Villa over the next couple of days.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to remember if Unai Emery is one that gives us complete clarity or not. The key to my plans is Ollie Watkins' injury status. He obviously pulled out along with Palmer and Foden of the England squad. We know Palmer is training and fine, and we know international break injuries or rests happen a lot. Foden has been ill, we know that, and he's missed a load of games. Palmer, we know, is training. We don't know a huge amount about Ollie Watkins, though, so I'm hoping we get that update from Emery. But Aston Villa training ground picks are going to be so important, both for me and Big Man, by the looks of it.
Yeah, and for Aston Villa, we sort of tend to get like credible information as well. For example, there's FPL Willen, who's a very sort of credible FPL account on X, and he sort of tends to post accurate information. So hopefully we can get some murmurs here or there, even if there's no official info from Unai Emery. I think the training pictures will probably be enough to sort of give us a clue either way.
Do you reckon we'll get leaks? In terms of leaks, are really important this week because we have both Liverpool and Man City playing at 3 o'clock on Saturday. That usually means they're 3 o'clock Saturday games for teams like that. We'll hear stuff pre-deadline. Yes. Southampton, Man United are the early kickoff. What do you make of the Aston Villa 5:30 game, though? Will we get anything concrete for Villa lineups by 5:30 kickoff? It might be pushing it.
It's tricky. I mean, for what it's worth, I think Watkins is likely going to be fine. I think that's another international break injury. I don't think it's something major. And for Konsa, I think we might, because like it's not as if it's like someone like someone. It's not really a big deal if that sort of information comes out. If that's what you're trying to say. But yeah, I think we'll hear news. I'm pretty sure that we will. Simply because so many people are invested in FPL nowadays, and Konsa is very highly owned, and so is Watkins. So I doubt if we don't sort of hear anything, credible before the deadline. And similarly, I think that we will have leaks for City and Liverpool as well. Now, there are plenty of people who own Jota, for example, or Lewis, for example. I think the leaks will be more pertinent to them, because I guess all the other players are more or less certain to start anyway. The likes of Salah, Haaland, let's say Guardiola, Trent, Robertson, these kind of guys.
Yeah, true. What do you make of the kind of the deadline teams then, like, because we are going to get news on, say, Bruno starts because it's Man United. If you're a Bruno owner, big man, where are you at right now? Because
Unfortunately, I am.
it goes to
It
the
seems like I've owned
Southampton
him since
fixture.
forever. It seems like I've owned him since forever. Like since he's been playing football at Man United, I've owned him. Yeah, I mean, my current plan is to keep him, but I'm not exactly sort of uh, locked into it because I really want Salah as well, and I don't really have an obvious route to Salah. Now that decision might actually be taken out of my hands if, let's say, Konza is injured and out for a while, because then I'll probably have to prioritize other things. But if nothing else comes up, then it might be something I consider. But I highly doubt that I sell Bruno before Southampton, if I'm being totally honest, because I don't think I'll be able to sort of take it if Bruno delivers after finally, showing some promising underlying data, and it's just not been. I think he's, to be very honest, I think he's not been. Yes, he's not been delivering points, but I don't think he's as terrible a pick as he has turned out to be. I think he should have had like one or two returns by now, and if that had been the case, I don't think people would have been going mad about him. But
Yeah.
just because the fact that he's blanked in 3 consecutive games is why sort of people are mass selling him. And I think if he blanks again this week, he'll probably drop to 8.3 next week. That's another thing at the back of my mind. I sort of realized the sort of drop down effect it's going to have in the weeks to come.
Yeah, that's definitely the issue, is the price, I guess. In terms of performances, you've seen enough to hold him for a Southampton fixture. That opening game against Fulham was obviously the one where he dodged all the points. Do you have a long-term plan, though? Let's assume he blanks. Is this kind of a last chance saloon for Bruno? Because if he blanks versus Southampton away, at that price point, you're going to be urged to move him on, aren't you? Or will you just get wildcard game week 6 and therefore carry him another week or two?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it will matter as much because I think sooner rather than later, I think I speak on the behalf of both of us when I say that it's very, very likely that we'll be wildcarding in a couple of weeks anyway, irrespective of how our players perform, right? So, yeah, I mean, I would be very grateful if he sort of gives me a parting gift or something of that sort. But yeah, I don't think I'll be mad to sort of keeping him on wildcard 6 if I end up going there. You're muted, Gianni.
I'm muted. Sorry, guys. I'm muting just when I'm not talking because of my background music. But good to see Bill and Offcourt. Well, Offcourt is a member already, and he's just gifted another membership. So Offcourt, very generous of you. And welcome, Bill, as well. And good to see other channel members like Gary in as well. Any channel members that have a question, our producer is watching that chat. And if he sees the emoji by your name, straight away we'll bring up your comments, as always. That is one of the perks to being a channel member. But thank you guys for hitting that like button and subscribing as well. Let's move our discussion. David says, "Where am I? I'm in a pub."
Let's just interesting. Gianni, you've done chasing green arrows from all parts of the world and like all weird, unusual kind of places you seem to pop up in them. Not just different countries, like different places, unusual places. My hotel rooms, pubs, whatnot.
Yeah, my personal favorite. I mean, we've streamed live from India. We've streamed live from various Airbnbs and hotel bedrooms. But my favorite one was actually when I was sat live with our producers in Dubai, and it was our record stream because we had shisha on the go. So there I was, just getting like high on life and having fun with shisha and 2 of my mates, the CGA families. So that was fun. I hope to do it from Dubai again. And big man, knowing you have frequented Dubai a fair amount over the years, maybe we could do a Dubai Chasing Green Arrows meetup again.
Of course, that would be awesome. I love Dubai. Of course.
Yeah, love that.
Gianni, I think without further ado, let's bring up your team. I really want to see where you're at. 2 weeks is a long time. I have a goldfish's memory anyway. So I want to have a look at your team, see and guess what you've done with it, and then sort of possibly reflect on what I can sort of do with my own team as well. Okay, so this is your team. This is the wild card.
This was a wild card draft. I'm guessing. I think we must have my team from the review show we did a couple of the start of the international break. So we'll show that.
If you can sort of bring that up, that would be amazing because I really want to sort of start from there and maybe pick up from it and get a few ideas regarding my own team. I'm actually curious to see and hear what you think about my own team this week as well.
Yeah,
but my guesses are that you've gotten Isak. I assume you probably sold Isak to fund Pedro and maybe made another move to maybe get Salah in for Saka. something like that.
Yeah, but I don't have Saka, do I? I had Son.
Son, yeah, it's the
Which
same thing, right? So
I
it's
think is an easier sell than Saka. I think selling Son is easier because he hasn't been playing great, and I think Saka against Spurs is a really nice fixture for Saka. So selling Son to Salah and Isak to João Pedro, yeah, I did it early
is it?
because, well, I mean, look, now Odegaard and Rice are out. Maybe Son's a better pick, but
Yeah, I mean, not just for this week. I'm speaking particularly from next week onwards because I think Son is borderline a captaincy shout in game week 5, and Saka is not a captaincy shout this week nor in game week 5 because he's playing Spurs and City.
yeah, but if you're
So
buying
yeah, I
Salah,
think
you
Son
don't
is a
need to
tough
worry
sell.
about captaincy in game week 5 if you're buying Salah, do you?
I agree. I completely agree, and I do think that Salah is a better captaincy option than Son for sure. But my point is that I think that Son is probably a harder sell than Saka.
Do you reckon?
Considering the next, I think so because Son is a good captaincy option game week 5. Saka isn't. One of my main reasons for sort of trying to jump on Salah desperately is because I don't have an alternative captaincy choice in game week 5, but you had Son. But yeah, I mean it's still a good move. Don't get me wrong, but it's a harder move to make, I think.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I pulled the trigger. Son is out, Salah is in, Isak is out, João Pedro is in. The only issue with these transfers is it. Oh, sorry, I see Gary's question. We'll talk Gary's question in just a sec. I'll just give you the two minutes on what I've done with my team.
Yeah. Sure.
What was I saying? Son, where was I? Son is out. Yeah, so Son's gone. Salah's in. Isak's out. João Pedro's in. I've taken another 4-point hit because that's a 4-point hit. I did one last week to get Ollie Watkins in the team. So Solanke's not there. Watkins is. This team is a game week 3 team. We might have my team post game week 3, which has my points on, which will be accurate with the transfers because I've sold Nkunku and Solanke. Yeah, I feel like I shouldn't be showing this team. This team's really old. Like I've made 4 transfers from this team, so we'll get this one off screen. And I'll just tell you my transfers. Pretty much, I still have a big issue at the back, big man. I've taken 2 4-point hits in 2 weeks, and I've still got Ben Johnson in my starting 11.
And do you think he's going to start? The fixture's all right.
Yes. I think he'll start because it's an away game. They've had one away game, and it was against Man City. He got the assist because they played a back 5. At home, though, they've been playing a back 4. They played 2 and Zabi at right back. Away, they played 2 and Zabi right centre back. And Johnson right wing back, and this is away at Brighton.
Yeah, they're away at Brighton. I assumed it was a home fixture against Fulham. Yeah, that was the previous week. Yeah, so yeah, that's a tough fixture. Yeah, I would not expect anything more than a 1-pointer either way. Even if he sort of plays, it's a 1-pointer. Even if he sort of comes on, it's a 1-pointer.
And I've got Lewis Hall, but I expect Kelly to play left back because it's again an away from home fixture. Kelly's done well when he's come in. I think Lewis Hall gets 10 minutes off the bench, 20 minutes off the bench. So yeah,
it's tricky. It's tricky. Well, what is your midfield looking like? So it's Salah,
Gordon.
I assume.
Yeah,
Salah,
Gordon, Salah. Let me find it on my phone. Gordon, Salah. I've got Jota still, and I've got Morgan Rogers.
And Morgan Rogers. Yeah, you got him for Nkunku last week.
Perfect.
Right? Yeah,
this is my team. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
So my team is the team
10.
plus Son out and Isak out for João Pedro, and so yeah, I'm happy with the rest of the team. And the 4-point hits, it's hard to know if they're working. I need Ollie Watkins to turn up, and I think Ollie Watkins is being criminally underlooked, and I think he's good for 60 minutes plus and maybe 90 if he plays well, and he could explode. Like he's had really fine margins, Ollie Watkins, from scoring goals this season. He's been unlucky. And there's a few shots which go the other side of the post, and we're all talking about how we get him into our teams. But because those shots are 2 millimeters the other way, people aren't talking about him. So if he comes through,
I sort of disagree. I sort of tend to disagree. I think Isak is a better player to own than Watkins for 0.5 million cheaper, personally, because for a player to haul, you effectively need him to play the majority of minutes, and I don't think Watkins in his current form or fitness warrants a 9 million price. So I guess the fixtures are there. Yes, he's come sort of close to scoring, but he's looked visibly rusty. And the Duran threat is real because Duran is playing really well. So for a guy to be hooked around the 60-65 minute mark is not ideal, especially when you're paying 9 million for him. For 0.5 cheaper, you get Isak. I guess the fixtures are slightly worse, but he's on pens. He's going to play 90 minutes. So I if anything, I would argue that Isak is better value. I mean, Watkins is all right, but yeah, I don't think he's worth 9 million at this point, at least.
Watkins could be on pens, has way better fixtures. He doesn't have the minutes, I get that. And Isak comes with a pen guarantee. But I guess my security on Isak is I own Anthony Gordon. So I still feel like I've got a little bit of insurance there.
Yeah, that's fine. That's a fair point.
And more importantly, I guess I can't even look at a straight swap between Watkins and Isak. For me, it just came down to how do I get Salah in? And sure, I could have sold Watkins, so it should have been a straight swap. But knowing I just bought Watkins in for what I expect to be an amazing fixture run, I have to gamble on the differential that feels like Watkins. I know he's 26% owned, but if we talk about really engaged managers, certainly those that we speak to on YouTube or on X, Ollie Watkins is 2% owned. Like, he's in no teams. Yeah. And I like that. Yeah. I like the fact it's a differential.
For sure. Maybe even less than 2%. Very few people have him. But Gianni, my question to you is, how close do you think are you to wildcarding this week? Do you think there's any chance to sort of, as soon as we sort of get closer to the deadline, you
100%.
You look at this team and you think that, it's maybe not sustainable to field 11, and then you pull the trigger? Because it seems like a team which is very close to wildcarding. I mean, mine is kind of similar, but I think yours is on the brink.
I definitely want a wild card later down the line, but sometimes needs must. And knowing I took a 4-point hit early in this game week, knowing full well if it all goes wrong, I've got the assurance of wiping out that hit by wild carding. If, for example, we were to hear Ollie Watkins is injured or hasn't trained at Villa and isn't going to start, or even if we were to hear at early team league that Jota is benched, those two things could be what my wildcard decision hinders on. What I'm not willing to do is make a -8. And what I'm not willing to do is go in with 9 men. So if I get down to another player not playing, yes, I'll be forced to an early wildcard. And I have made a wildcard draft. We saw that on the earlier video. And Sean makes a good point. Like, we'll bring Sean's comment up and then we'll address the members' questions as well. But he said, Barco, Johnson and Sangare in my team while still taking 2 4-point hits. I -8 in total. Gianni, what have you been doing? And it's partly down to, you could argue, poor management, but I would kind of say mostly it's down to some rotten luck at the start of the season and maybe picking too many risky picks. So I had Kwanzaa, I had Solanke, I had Barco, I had Nkunku. I had all of the players, Lewis Hall, Ben Johnson, players that we thought were probably way more nailed than they were. And that's partly my fault from picking risky picks, but partly just down to rotten luck. So, yeah, it is what it is. Thanks, though, Sean.
Gary is asking, Konsa or Lewis with Duncan TA defense this birthday weekend? Happy birthday to you, Gary, firstly. Konsa or Lewis? I mean, Konsa was taken off at the weekend, so that's something which I think needs a bit of more information before we sort of act on it. I think Lewis is probably better, though. But are you sure that Lewis starts this week? Because he was away on international duty, and he sort of played as well last night. Walker's been training with the team. There is a possibility that Walker starts over Lewis, although I would still expect Lewis to start, but there is a world where Walker could start over him. What do you think, Gianni?
I think Walker's going to be used a lot for the Champions League games, and I do think in the easier Premier League fixtures, Lewis is really safe, and I think he's one of the first names on the team sheet in the Premier League at the moment, the way he's been playing. So I'd be shocked if Lewis didn't start at the weekend. There might be a world in which Walker and Lewis start. You never know with Pep. Like, it could be Lewis inverts from the left or whatever. I don't know. But Lewis does feel fairly safe.
Yes. Yeah, so my sort of answer to this question would probably hinge on early team leagues on Saturday. Let's assume you hear a league that Lewis is starting and Konsa is fit and available. I think I'd go with Lewis in that case.
Yeah. Joseph, thank you. Tempted to take out Saka with his 2 hard games. Yeah, I wouldn't be taking Saka out for Eze, no. Let's continue away from guys. We'll make sure we have a dedicated section of Q&A, and if we're ever on a topic where there's relevant questions for that, we'll bring it up as well. Guys, thank you as always for your likes and subscribes. I'm also seeing more channel members coming in, which is lovely to see, guys. Thank you for supporting Chasing Green Arrows. If you want to be a member, you can do that. Big man, shall we talk about before we see your team? Go on. Any top line thoughts on my team before we move on to yours?
Yeah, I think now that you've sort of taken a hit, at least the good part is you'll be sorted for the one or 2 weeks if nothing else comes up, and then next week you can perhaps make a defensive transfer, and then you can sort of wildcard in game week 6. I assume that's your plan, right?
It is. I don't know if I'll end up wildcarding in 6, but the plan is to have that assurance if I want to wildcard in 6 and jump on Arsenal assets. But maybe I end up rolling the transfer for a week or two. Come game week 6, can get 2 Arsenal in, feel all right, going and Bummo the week after,
I think
and
this
don't
is
need to wildcard.
yeah, I think this is a good segue into my team. So let's sort of jump on my team where I can sort of bring up. Gianni, can you hear me?
Yeah. Got you loud and clear. Can you hear me? Are we live?
We are live, I think.
Okay. I think we're live still.
Yeah, G, can you hear me?
Yes, got ya.
Amazing. I think let's bring up my team. It will be a nice sort of segue from the discussion we were having. So here's my team for game week 4. We have 2 free transfers and we have 1.5 million in the bank. I'm not exactly sure what to do with this team. G, if you had this team and without me sort of giving any ideas, with 2 free transfers, 1.5 million in the bank, what would you exactly look at doing this week? Forget about the wildcard strategy. Forget about anything. What would you do if this was your team?
I would 100% make sure I have a third Liverpool asset. I know you have Kwanzaa, so effectively you have 1 Liverpool asset and you need 2 or 3. I don't think there's moves in which allow you to sell Kwanzaa because you need to boost your midfield, and I think you're going to want Salah for captaincy in 5. So, is there a way of going Bruno up to Salah and Isak down to anyone, or is there not enough funds? Do you have to sell Saka to get Salah, or could you sell Bruno to get Salah in 2 moves?
Well, I would need, let's say, close to 3 million to sort of downgrade Isak, but there's no one in that price range who really appeals at like 5.5 million or below, right? So I can't effectively sell Isak to a dead spot in the forwards because I already have Winks and Concept, right? So that's not something I can do. I'll effectively have to sell Saka to get Salah, basically.
I'm just looking at 5.5 forwards and below to see if there's any, because
no
I'm much. Is there no one that gets sort of good even bench minutes? Like, it's a shame because Welbeck's 5.7. You could go Delap. He's been starting. Delap is 5.5.
Point is, I'll need to start that forward, right? I'll need to start that forward.
Yeah, no.
Because I have Winks. Yeah, so I need a playable attacker.
I tell you who I do like, though. I don't like. It's not ideal by any stretch. And he can't play this week because he's against his parent club. But at 5.4, you can get Odsonne Edouard. Edouard has not gone to Leicester to sit on the bench. He'll be Leicester's starting number 9, I think. But yeah, it's tricky. I just don't like selling Saka, knowing if you could hold Saka, you might not have to wildcard in game week 6. You might be able to, but if you sell Saka, you're almost certainly wildcarding in 6.
See, this is basically the nail on the head. So there are 2 options. I can, keep this team, keep Saka for the run in game week 6, potentially get 2 Arsenal, which will be easy to do in game week 6, and forget about Salah. But not having Salah in game week 4 and 5 seems like too much of a stretch for me to sort of pass. The second is that I can get Salah, but then I will effectively have to wildcard in game week 6 to get triple Arsenal, to get Mbomo. That's the trade-off. Either I don't get Salah and I get triple Arsenal by ignoring Salah and wildcard and sort of keeping the wildcard till later, or I decide to wildcard in game week 6.
Yeah.
I sell Saka and I get Salah. So that's the trade-off, right? And currently I'm looking towards getting Salah and potentially wildcarding soon, not necessarily in 6, but maybe in
8,
7, 5, say 8, something like that. But yeah, I mean, definitely sometime soon. So the point is Saka will have to go. The only sort of realistic route I have is maybe by selling Porro to a 4 million cheap option, but that would require Konza to be fit. That is why I was saying that is a very important piece of the jigsaw for me to fit in this week. My team is perfectly fine for game week 4 and 5. Like the 11 are really good, but my bench would be non-existent. So as long as Konsa is fine, I can execute that plan. And it could work well for 2 weeks as a short-term gamble. But if, let's say, Konsa is not fine and if he's not available, then what route do I have to Salah? Right? Then I'll probably have to downgrade Bruno to Mente. Maybe that's a route.
Yeah. I don't mind that. I don't mind Minte as an addition. Like, you've already got double Brighton, but Ipswich and Forest is there for the taking in terms of big ceiling games.
Right. I could do Bruno to Minte, Saka to Salah next 2 weeks.
Do you like Isak that much though that you can't? That, like, if you go Saka to Salah, how much do you have to spend on an Isak replacement?
I'll check that out. But the thing is, it's not that I love or I'm married to Isak. Isak is a good option, but it's just that I don't like any forwards in that price range below.
6.1 Vissa, and then again that helps the non-wild card in 6 if you're already on a Brentford attacker.
Dude, I'm not playing Wissa against Man City. There's no way. There's no way I'm buying Wissa away to Man City. If I'm to buy Wissa, I would just draw the wild card in 6 and get him then.
Okay, what about Nico Jackson? Yeah. Isak to Jackson, Saka to Salah.
Yeah, I'm just actually going to have a look. If I sell Saka for Salah, I will have exactly 7.3 as the Isak replacement.
Oh, it's slim pickings, to be fair. 7.3.
Exactly.
7.6, you can go Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah, at 7.3, there's effectively no one, right?
I mean, Mateta 7.4 and Ketia, but we don't know about his minutes.
Yeah, people with Muniz are already sort of close to selling him, so I don't know if Muniz is realistically an option to buy anymore, to be very honest.
I like Ivan Nilsson as a punt. I really like Ivan Nilsson as a punt, but I can't. It's Chelsea and Liverpool up next. It's two bad fixtures. By wildcard in 6, though, we'll know more about his minutes and we'll know about how he's played. But I do think Evan Nilsson's potentially going to be a really good asset at his price.
Yeah, so basically the selling Isak option is not really optimal for my team. Not
You'll
this week
stick it with Isak because you own João. No, the vast majority of those selling Isak are going to João Pedro. You already own him.
Exactly. So I realistically have 3 options. The first is to save and potentially, reassess next week. Because Salah's not exactly a captaincy option this week, I don't necessarily have to bring him in this week, right? I don't think he's essential this week. He's a good buy for sure, but he's not essential. So, yeah, I could save. The second option is the second and third option obviously involve buying Salah with the idea that if I'm buying him in game week 5 anyway, might as well get him this week. That's the idea behind getting him. I could sell it. I could fund it by, let's say, selling Porro to Nedeljkovic. But again, that assumes Konsa is fine. And the second option is, if Konsa is not fine, I can play Porro and maybe downgrade Bruno to Minte and do Saka to Salah. That's the third option, right? So,
I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Like, I do think Bruno Short is a hard sell this week, but he's going to drop in value if he blanks versus Southampton. And I think Crystal Palace away is a really tough fixture for Bruno where I expect nothing. And at that price point, I'm just happy to offload him. When Minter's
but I could sell him that. But I could sell him next week, right? That's the counter argument. I
Yeah,
could sell him next week. I don't have to
yeah.
hold on to him. Especially if I'm wildcarding in 6, I could just get a 1 week punt or something of that sort, right?
But
So
you need to
yeah,
sell him
it's
this week
still
if you're getting
tricky.
Salah. You need to sell Bruno this
Uh,
week if you're getting Salah in option number 3,
yeah,
which I think is your best
yeah,
option. Like Pedro Porro
yeah.
feels like a good pick versus Brentford in 5.
Yes, that's the thing, right? That's another thing. That's what makes it so tricky. But I don't want to sell Bruno before Southampton, man. That's the tricky. That's the see. That's the trade off that I'm trying to sort of make in my head, and
Yeah.
it's really really tricky. It's really tricky.
Let us know in the chat what you think. But for me, for Big Man to get Salah, he has three options. Roundabout way, he can sell Isak to somehow get Salah. He can sell Pedro to somehow get Salah, or he can sell Bruno to somehow get Salah. Right? We know this involves
Yeah.
selling Saka already. From those 3 options, knowing you already have João Pedro, Isak's ruled out. Knowing Pedro Porro has such a good game week 5 fixture, and actually your replacement for Porro is a Nedeljkovic who should start. There's no guarantee, even with Konza out. But Bruno staring me in the face that it's probably just a sell. A dysfunctional Man United team. But
Yeah,
if you think you need to keep
it's a
Bruno,
tricky
that's
point.
also fine. But if you're keeping Bruno, I think you keep Bruno and therefore commit to no Salah.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? What do you think about the other option of saving? Do you think it is too passive?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I
For
mean,
me, it's not something I'd consider, but I know one of my flaws is I'm not patient enough and I'm not passive enough. So you're asking the wrong person. But I mean,
it
let's talk.
seems a bit too passive even for my liking, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, let's talk about
Because
Salah. The
Salah
need
is
for
like,
him. How necessary is Mo Salah right here, right now? I would argue he's.
yeah, I think there's no way I go without him in game week 5. Let me put it that way. So he has to come in game week 5,
But if you're having him in
right?
game week 5, big man, you have to have him in game week 4. There's no
See, that's
because
the question I'm trying
the
to
ceiling
answer.
in 4 is just as high, pretty much. And I know we're not captaining him, but he looks so good, doesn't he? Like the first 3 game weeks, I think we've all been a bit surprised how sharp Salah looked. I don't think we quite
Yeah.
expected it with him being another year older, with Arne Slot football maybe being a little bit more controlled and less attacking. Well, it's still been equally as attacking as it was under Klopp, but still way more controlled and better defensively. And Salah is getting into, I mean, we've seen the post-match interviews with Mo Salah. He's hungry for all sorts of records and goals. He said about it being his last season, and we know his contract situation. He'll likely end up in Saudi. He wants to end on a high, and he wants he's finishing matches not happy with his 1 goal and 1 assist, going, I want a hat trick. Like a bit like Haaland, that summer off clearly did him a load of good. And I watched the way Liverpool are playing and go, there is no replacement or no one that can cover Mo Salah. He is the Liverpool player you have to own, which is why I was willing to take a 4-point hit to get him in. That wasn't my plan. I was going to go without Salah. And that's why I went Watkins last week. We discussed it. You said, don't go Watkins, go João Pedro, and I have a free route to Salah in game week 4. And I went, no, I don't even know if I want Salah game week 4. But watching that Man United Liverpool game confirmed for me that I need Salah game week 4.
Yeah, I hear you, and I mean it's going to be scary going without him again. I mean, it's already been a horrendous experience not having the first 3 weeks. So not having it at home to Nottingham Forest, it can only sort of get worse. Yeah, I mean, just one point I'd like to add with the Nedeljkovic thing is that I don't actually need him to play in game week 4 or 5 if Konza is fine.
If
And
Konza's
one of the
fine,
reasons,
yeah.
if Konza is fine, and one of the reasons why I'm sort of semi-comfortable selling Porro is because Dunk, Konza, and Trent is a good enough backline for the next 2 weeks. If you look at the fixtures, Konza has Everton at home, Wolves at home, Dunk has Ipswich at home, Forest at home, right? And Trent is Trent. So do I necessarily need Porro? Not really. Is Porro versus Brentford a good enough fixture with that defense for me to compromise on Bruno against Southampton? That's the question in my head. I sort of agree with you to the extent that yes, not having this Salah this week is probably a bit too passive if I end up saving. But I'm sort of discussing and debating the route in my head, and currently I'm sort of leaning towards the Porro to the Nedeljkovic move if Konza is fine. But I doubt I'm not sure whether we hear any news, and if we don't, then I don't think I can sort of bring myself to do that. That's the issue.
I get it. I don't think that's a bad move either. Like, I think waiting
Yeah.
on Konza makes sense, and I think you make a good point on Pedro. A reason to keep Bruno for that Southampton fixture would be lovely.
And
Like, of course it would
and
be.
and Gianni, one final thing. Assuming that there's some injury in my team in game week 4, I can just sort of bring the wild card forward by 1 week. Yes, it's not ideal, but it's not the end
Yeah,
of the world. I mean, game week 5 wild carding is a possibility,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
could be
yeah.
done.
And I think a game week 5 wild card, you can still get your Brentford players in place, like and Burmo. You can still go with 2 Arsenal, maybe even 3, and bench 1 or 2 of them. Like, it's fine
Yeah.
to. It's fine every week now. Like, I looked at a game week 3 wildcard last week, and if I'd done it, and I made a video on this, if I'd done my game week 3 wildcard, I'd be 23 points up on my current team with a really nice looking team. Like, it wouldn't have everything in place, sure, but again, I think a game week 4 wildcard, does it finish 20 above my current team? Probably not this week, maybe 10. But still, like, there's a benefit any week, of course there is. And at the moment, it feels like every week there is value to it and arguments for it. And game week 5 will be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Adham
Yeah,
asked about
that's where I'm at.
yeah,
That's where I'm at. And I think this is probably the sort of most sort of tricky decision I've had to make all season after game week 1, because game week 2 or game week 3 weren't exactly very sort of tough decisions to make for my team. I mean, I had Kwanzaa. I guess I could just let him rot on the bench. Then I had to replace Nkunku. But the choices were more or less obvious, and it did not exactly seem as if they would have a huge impact on my team. But this decision, it feels one which could end up being very, very swingy. So yeah, it's very, very
yeah.
important to get it right.
Adham, thank you for your question. Yeah, we would say use the 3 transfers and don't wildcard. But let's just continue on Bigman's team for a second. Big Man, I've got a couple of questions for you. The money in the bank is obviously useful in the 2 free transfers. I think I know the answer to this, and I think you'd be right in saying no. Have you considered an option 4, which involves 3 transfers and a 4-point hit for Mo Salah?
Not necessarily, because it's not as if I can't get to him for free. And secondly, if I'm not captaining, I'm not taking a hit for him. That's where I'm at this
Fair.
week. Yeah.
Fair. And captaincy itself, you've got it on Haaland versus Brentford. If you buy Salah, you're going to have Salah at Forest. There will be owners. There's going to be a lot of managers that own both these players now. Like, there wasn't a couple of weeks ago. There will be now. A lot are moving towards Salah and Haaland drafts, whether they're taking hits, free transfers, or wildcards. If you own both those players this week, which one scores more points and who do you captain? Because for me, it's still Haaland, but there'll be many that argue Salah's matched him and has the extra point for the goal and comes with the clean sheet point, and actually Salah is the better captaincy option for some.
I would still go Haaland. I don't think it would make any difference to my decision. I think Haaland is a better choice. And in this form, I just can't overlook him, man. I mean, he can end up getting a hat-trick in any kind of game. I think Haaland at home to a non-top 6 team, I very rarely sort of tend to go against. And if he's fit, then I think he's clearly the best option.
Yeah, fair enough. I'd feel exactly the same. What I like about this team, Big Man, is you'll get into this massive dilemma. And I know you've got 3 options, but fair play, because you've got 1.5 million in the bank and you've got 2 free transfers. You've hit this big decision week just as you thought you would, right? And therefore you're prepared for it. You've got money in the bank and you've got free transfers. I've hit this week with a tiny bit of money in the bank and off the back of a 4-point hit and taking another 4-point hit. So fair play, because you've had to suck it up. Like, you've not dealt with all your fires. Neither have I, and arguably I had more fires, which is why I have the lack of prepness. But you have had to watch, and this will be painful for you, Kwanzaa and Bruno dropping in price. Just tell me about
that was painful for sure.
Like,
I mean, the Kwanzaa one was, he's just going to keep dropping like a stone. I've just sort of made peace with the fact that, he's a bit of a dead spot in my team. And it's not ideal, but we play for points. We don't play for value. So it's fine. I mean, it was, I would say it was a bad decision at the end of the day, but I think I've been harshly punished for it. I don't think I should have been as harshly punished as I have been for it.
Okay.
If he'd started the first 2 weeks, it wouldn't have really mattered. But just the fact that he got sort of taken off after the first 45 minutes was what made it look horrendous. And yeah, it just has been bleeding value since then. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm sort of okay with the start. It was great with Eze and Pedro. And it's sort of nice to be in this position where people are sort of jumping on Brighton assets and Eze, and I sort of already have them in place. and same with Villa assets. So it's basically Salah, who is basically the only decision in my team. And as long as I can get that right, I hope that I'll be fine by game week 6. Because to be very honest, like you put it, it's we're just barely 3 weeks into the season, and I don't think even the next 1 or 2 weeks would matter as much in the longer scheme of things, because me and you practically are basically on our last legs with our current teams, right? So effectively, what is going to matter is the team which we effectively build for the rest of the season, which is basically going to be for like 20 to 25 weeks. This team at the end of the day will only be there for like 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks at best. So yeah, I mean, as long as it sort of serves a purpose, we've sort of done well. And yeah, it's all about sort of making sure that I don't get hurt by not having Salah. The only sort of thing I was sort of hoping for at the start of the season was that if I could potentially get Son in game week 5, take on the Salah captaincy. But from what I've seen so far, I'm just too scared to do that right now, and it just seems very, very difficult to take on not owning Salah and sort of doubling down on Son as the captain against Brentford. It could pay off, but it's very, very risky. It's not something I'd be very comfortable doing at this stage now.
Solanke's going to be back in, which for me as a Son owner just meant it's likely Son's going to be wide and just not as good. I do really think in this Postecoglou team, Son wide isn't worth 10 million, but he is absolutely worth it down the middle. Thank you for sharing some stats, Lewis. Forest, the second best defence for expected goals conceded so far this season. 5.4 for Brentford, says Lewis, and 2.1 for Forest in terms of XGC. That's really valuable to have, Lewis, when talking captaincy. So thank you for sharing that.
I would like to add, I would like to sort of mention a disclaimer that Forest have had a very good run of fixtures, while Brentford's run has not exactly been great. Brentford have played Liverpool as well, so that's kind of skewed the stats in their favor. So I think it's too small of a sample size to be looking at this stage for these kind of data or data references. But overall, I would possibly use bookmaker odds as a better sort of means of measuring what the probability of either guy scoring is.
Yeah, the clean sheet odds are always useful. I'll get them right now, actually. A clean sheet odds on both teams. So Brentford and Forest we're looking for, I can just tell you right now. So Nottingham Forest are 8% likely to keep a clean sheet and Brentford 6% likely. So they are both the two, in terms of bookmaker odds, the two least likely to keep a clean sheet this game week, as you might expect. Let's just talk about João Pedro. Because I saw a comment in the chat. Who was it from? I want to shout out whoever mentioned the flight journey back and thanking me for a couple of tweets I sent this morning. Tiggy Taylor, there we go. Thank you for your João Pedro post on flights. Bit of FPL fun, and it was. João Pedro played late Tuesday night, so early hours of Wednesday morning, in England time, 1:30 a.m. Against Paraguay, in Paraguay. Julio Enciso plays for Paraguay, and they played against each other. João Pedro got 45 minutes, Enciso started. And you would think Brighton would go, I'm going to charter a flight back from Paraguay to Gatwick Airport in London, South London, Gatwick, really close to Brighton. But they haven't. They've decided to put the boys on a flight, which will be a private jet back direct from Paraguay to the UK at least. A 16-hour flight that I think is going back to Manchester. And I can only assume it's Manchester because Manchester is... Zubi, we'll get to your question in just a second. Manchester, because probably there's Man United and City players playing in South America, Brazil, and therefore they've all jumped on the same flight. The good news is they will be back they'll be back late Thursday evening, and a flight from Manchester to Gatwick will be an hour, and they should train on Thursday. If they don't train Thursday, they'll definitely be around on Friday, which is more of a run-through training session for a Saturday game. I very much think João Pedro will start on Saturday, is what I'm saying here. He also plays 3 o'clock versus Ipswich. Again, we could get a team leak. So I think team leaks this week are really, really big. And João Pedro news will be key for many. Because again, if I hear João Pedro's benched, that might force me into a wild card. I don't think it would. I think that one would, because I'd say points off the bench for João Pedro against Ipswich are still likely. But 45 minutes in the international break is all he got, and he could be back for Thursday training. Big man, anything you want to add to that and my flight planning?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking if that kind of situation arose with my team, what would I end up doing? I still think I would end up having João Pedro in my wildcard team because he's so good value. I might end up benching him, but I might have playable attackers and have him as the 8th one this week. Yeah, something like that. But it's important to have these kind of contingency plans in case we hear any sort of news on on Saturday, which could easily come up and which could easily scupper all our plans. I know so many people have went João Pedro early this week before his price rise. So yeah, it would create absolute chaos if you hear anything, along those lines on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly that. I'm actually quite pleased in a way that João Pedro got called up for Brazil but late, because if he had been called up for Brazil early with everyone else, I might not have bought him. I might have just gone, oh, it's too risky, but I'm really glad I have him, because I do think that's going to be a move that pays off, and I do think he'll start. But yeah, he is, I think, the second or third most transferred in player this game week. He's first. I think he's first. Luis Diaz is second, and Salah's top 3 or 4 as well. So a lot of selling Isak to João Pedro, the move I made.
Yeah, Gianni, I think a lot of people are on Wildcard this week. Let's just quickly skim through your possible Wildcard draft for five odd minutes and see where people are at, where you're at with your Wildcard thoughts to address the questions that people have regarding the Wildcard teams.
True. Rather than show it, though, I don't want to show that what we showed earlier, because it's such an old one, and I have since made a more up-to-date version. So let me talk you through what a wildcard draft would look like.
Sure.
I guess the big question for many would be, what do you do? Where do you start with Liverpool assets? I think you get 3, 100%. And I think because of rotation in the Champions League coming up, which we'll see to Jota and we'll see for Luis Diaz, I think you just go Robertson and Trent with Salah. Would you go with those 3?
I 100% agree. I won't be sort of fixated on having 3, but I think if you're going for 3, those are the 3 optimal players to have. I mean, first things first, both Salah and Haaland in the team, right? Has to be.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I assume so, yeah. So both Salah and Haaland, I would do similar. I would do Trent and Robertson as well. Who would be your goalkeeper? Which pairings have you sort of looked at?
It would be Flecken and Verbruggen, and that is just, I know it's 2 4.5s, but I wonder if 2 4.5s was the answer all along, and I wanted to do that pre-season and didn't because I needed the extra. But if you go Verbruggen, you get the next 2 games, which are brilliant. When Brighton's fixtures turn in 6, Brentford's get really good. They rotate really well.
Yeah, they rotate well. I think the ones I've looked at are Verbruggen, Flecken, Verbruggen with a 4.0, and maybe Raya. Raya, next 2 fixtures aren't great, but long term he's a good pick. So yeah, that would probably be enough to put me off Raya, because the next 2 aren't great. So yeah, I would probably go with Verbruggen with either of, let's say, he rotates well with Flecken and Ramsdale, even if you don't have the funds. So yeah, those 2 are fine. What I wouldn't do, though, is get Flecken and the Brentford backup, because you were very likely going to have Mbomo as well, and that would maybe lock you out of Wissa. So that's something I won't recommend doing. Because I would want to have a slot for Wissa available, let's say, in game week 6 if need be. So yeah, moving on. I think Porro and Konza, I would still have them, assuming Konza is fine from Aston Villa, or Pau Torres if he isn't. I think Aston Villa's fixtures are good enough to probably warrant having 1 defender, and I think Porro is just going to be great value over the course of the season. He's actually top for shots among defenders so far. So yeah, I would have a Porro and Konza, Porro and Torres rotating. And maybe Rico Lewis. I'm not sure about Rico Lewis. Where are you at with Rico Lewis? Would you have Rico Lewis?
I've got Rico Lewis. I've actually got Gabriel on the bench. I've got Rico Lewis, the 2 Liverpool lads in my starting 11, those 3, and then got Gabriel bench. So it's big at the back, and it's actually a team that can then be a back 4 with 1 enabler, 1 4 million fodder, Mosquera, although he's just got injured. But it would be with mine to a back 4, knowing my midfield and forwards would have 3 around sort of 5.5 guys. So I could bench 2 of them to play a back 4 some weeks. And that is because I've got Salah, Haaland, and I therefore need 3 5 million-ish forwards or attackers. So I've got João Pedro and Welbeck. And again, Welbeck would be on the bench most of the time, but I'd start him in the next 2. And Welbeck would become Visser further down the line, likely, or Evan Nilsson or someone good. But yeah, I did just see Matthew, sorry, as a channel member, Matthew, especially one that signed up today, we should have flashed your comment up when talking goalkeeper. So yeah, Alisson absolutely is worth consideration as a 3rd keeper. Is Ramsdale now a lock starter? Yes, but I wouldn't go near Southampton defence. So I think that's where I'm at, big man. Any other final thoughts on Wildcard you want to touch on before we answer some questions?
Yeah, I mean, in midfield, I think I would probably lock in Mbomo as 2. I would almost certainly pick Salah. We've already discussed. Rodgers, I think, is great value, and for you to enable a team with Haaland, Trent, Salah, having someone like a Rodgers is very important so that he can enable the rest of the team. And then the 5th midfielder is actually trickier to pick. I think it could be Minte I would probably lean that way because of Brighton's fixtures. Uh, and yeah, up front you can go with Haaland and João Pedro, and the third slot can sort of differ depending on whatever budget you have available. But yeah, I would be very tempted to dodge Arsenal completely on a wild card because the next 2 weeks there are plenty of gains to be made, and if you end up saving, let's say, in the next 2 weeks, then you can end up getting Arsenal assets in game week 6. You can sell Salah in game week 6. Actually, all plans I've looked at, even if I sort of a wild card myself in game week 6, I won't have Salah. I would have Saka because Arsenal playing Leicester at home, Southampton at home in game week 6 and 7 respectively. So all my plans include having double or triple Arsenal game week 6 and 7. So yeah, I think for now you can dodge Arsenal with a view of saving 2 free transfers, then bringing them in game week 6.
Yeah, like that. Thank you, Zubi. We've kind of
Yeah.
answered your question there. We'll move to the next one. Lots of questions coming in. Thank you, guys. We'll try and get to a couple. Shushan, Anana, absolutely not. Do not go off last week's points. Rogers just scored 3 for the under-21s and a penalty. Rogers, yeah, we don't even need to discuss this one. Binod, I'm sorry, mate. We're not going to answer your question because Mark is one of our boys, and you're lucky you've not been booted out so far. So, Binod, we'll answer your question on Friday if you ask once and don't spam the chat and don't insult one of our regulars, Mark, who is a loyal chaser. So we'll move on from Binod's question. Rogers blanks again. No, don't worry. Rogers is staying. We love Rogers. Big Man and I will pick Rogers as the best 5 million midfielder for a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to be realistic with expectations, right? He's 5 million. So even if he gets like one return every 2 weeks, it's fine. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Also, Raheem Sterling at 6.8 possible for game week 6. It's just the sort of rotation with Trossard, Martinelli, etc., which sort of worries me. I still think he's a wait and see. If he shows any kind of form, then I might end up going there, but I doubt I do. Because currently I'm looking at game week 6. And let's say if Odegaard is out till that long, which you expect him to, then I'm looking at Saka, Gabriel, and maybe Raya as being the top 3 optimal Arsenal players to own. So I'm looking at that double Arsenal defense. Is Havertz still a good option if Odegaard is out? I think he's a good option. I don't think he's a bad option, but he certainly isn't as good an option anymore if he plays deeper, in my opinion. Gordon or Minte? I think Minte.
I own Gordon, and I'd say Minter, especially for the price. Semenyo or João Pedro is a really interesting one. If you're on Wildcard, I see why so many like Semenyo. He is playing as a wide forward, though. He's not, and I know he's playing really well as a wide forward. He can still get points, but João Pedro for me is just a class above for the team he plays for, the fact he's on pens, and he's getting 90 minutes, and he moves to the number 9 quite often late in a game when Welbeck comes off. It's not even close, that. João Pedro for me.
Yeah. Semenyo is a good pick, but I think João Pedro is clear at this point. Yeah, you can take the Gianni.
5.3 defender. I mean, I would probably... Kanate is genuinely an option. I do like Kanate, and actually I made a wildcard team with Kanate in because I couldn't reach Robertson. If you can find the extra million, Robertson's so much better, but I still think in his own right, Kanate is a 5 million option as a third Liverpool asset is fine. Like, they're going to keep a ton of clean sheets, so I don't mind that.
Big Man, have you contemplated Saka, Isak to Salah, Welbeck? It's a transfer I can do. Yes, it's a decent transfer. And yeah, I think I can afford it, actually. Let me have a look.
You can afford it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think you're 0.1. Are you 0.1 short? I think you got 5.5. Welbeck's 5.6, and I think you got 5.5 to spend, haven't you?
I have I have enough in the bank to do it. I can do it, yeah.
One to consider. I mean, Welbeck.
Yeah.
It's
a good idea. Thank you.
Evan Ferguson got a hat-trick for Ireland and is back. And Evan Ferguson will definitely eat into Welbeck's minutes, but he's not saying he'll start. I think Welbeck's good for a start in game week 4, maybe 5. Calvert-Lewin isn't one for me and Big Man, but look, Dean has Calvert-Lewin, and Dean is 47k in the world without using a chip. He's had an unbelievable start to FPL. We gave him stick for the Calvert-Lewin pick, so we'll speak to Dean on Friday about that one. Last question from Andy, Big Man, one for you.
Who's the best punt? 4.55 million forward is the best when it's time to enable a strong midfield. No one in particular, actually. Just pick the cheapest one you can get. I think Stewart is 4.4 if I'm not mistaken, from Southampton. And yeah, just beef up the rest of the team because I won't depend on a 5 million forward for minutes going forward.
Yeah,
for sure.
Nice. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We've loved that hour chat, me and Big Man. It's taken us a while. Chasing Green Arrows will, it's been a while, and not taken us a while, been a while. I look forward to our standard regular Wednesday streams this season, always around Wednesday. Maybe Evan Ferguson didn't get a hat trick. Maybe I got that wrong, Mark. I don't know. I thought I read that for Ireland. He's definitely back fit, though, and he featured for Ireland the other day. Guys, we will be back on Friday. Me and Big Man will be back every Wednesday, lunchtime. Make sure you hit that notification bell, though, when you subscribe. Or even if you subscribe, go and hit the notification bell, because our stream times, whether it's a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, are sometimes an hour either way. So I always want you to get those alerts when we go live. So, for example, on Friday, I think we're doing 6 p.m. Guys, we look forward to having your support all season. Likes and subscribes, welcome. Big Man, any closing thoughts from you before we say our goodbyes?
I think we've discussed everything at length this week, Gianni. I wish you all the best. It's a tricky week. So yeah, let's hope we navigate it well.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, good luck for you. It sounds like your decision, I mean, look, my decision could be massive because it could be a wild card, but it's very likely that I just have that 4-point hit I've already made and I get to keep it for another couple of weeks, that current team. Big Man is going to be probably looking at salary, and I think you'll go for the Pedro Porro option out, which I don't hate and completely understand. And we'll wait and see what team leaks we get Saturday morning, which might affect that. For now, guys, he's been Big Man, I've been Gianni, and we've been chasing Green Arrows. Bye-bye.